Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, where plant friends do welcome back to my channel, where plant friends do what plant friends do. My name is Darylyn, and this is Plant Friend Down the Street. Hey plant friends. I was kind of stuck between a whole bunch of different topics to shoot today, and then I kind of remembered this ridiculous conversation that I had with a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago. As anyone who has bought or sold plants in the plant community in the last couple of years who hasn't been living under a rock would know, the plant community has its share of shady people. And my friend and I were talking about Philodendron Melanochrysum. The ever recurring feature that plant has on this channel is kind of an accident. I mean, kind of deserving. I love that plant. I have a bunch of them. But anyway, I digress. We were talking about her Philodendron Melanochrysum, and a couple of videos ago, I did the Is Philodendron Melanochrysum Cancelled video. And one of the points that I actually forgot to bring up in that video is that a lot of people criticize Philodendron Melanochrysum because, I mean, it is like an annoying pain in the ass, and like all that's like fair, and we covered that pretty well in that episode, so please go watch that if you want. But another pretty valid criticism that I totally forgot to bring up in that episode was people say, what's the point of having a Melanochrysum if it's just gonna stay tiny forever? You might as well just get a Philodendron Micans. And fair enough. And one of the things that my friend and I were talking about when we were talking about her Philodendron Melanochrysum and all the struggles she's had with it is she was very concerned about the possibility or the likelihood that someone shady could pass a Philodendron Micans off for a Philodendron Melanochrysum. And I was like, no way. The growth pattern's different, the ribbing's different, the colors are different, the new growth is different. Everything about it is different. There's no way that someone could pass a Micans off for a Melanochrysum. And she was like, well, if you're shopping for a Melanochrysum, then you probably don't have the plant, right? So how would you know? And I was like, you know what? That's a good point. Well, as it just so happens, I have in my possession both a juvenile Philodendron Melanochrysum and a whole bunch of Philodendron Micans that are small enough to be, you know, in the same ballpark. So I guess that brings us to the topic of today's video, which is how to tell the difference between juvenile Philodendron Melanochrysum and Philodendron Micans. So just looking at these two plants right off the bat, I mean, I see a whole bunch of differences, and mainly that would be down to the growth pattern. We discussed in the Philodendron Melanochrysum video that melanos have their growth pushing out of a petiolar sheath rather than a standalone cataphyll until they are fairly mature as compared to other, you know, closely related philodendrons. It's kind of the same thing with Philodendron Micans. It's a form of Philodendron Heteroecium, and they also push their new growth out of a freestanding cataphyll. You can't really see it on this plant because these are all recently taken cuttings and none of them have fresh growth points, but I have the cuttings so I can show you on the cuttings. Okay, so let's get really up close and personal. As you can see, so this is the Philodendron Melanochrysum, and as you can see, there we go. As you can see, that new leaf right there, as it just so happens, is emerging, and it is, as you can see, emerging from the petiolar sheath, coming out of that petiole. The petiole, often mistaken for or called the stem, is actually what connects the leaf to the stem. So as you can see on this leaf right here, the green rod of tissue that is attached to the base of the leaf, and it goes down to the base of the plant. The stem is very short here because it's juvenile and the nodes are very close together, but that is the petiole, and as you will see, this new leaf right here is emerging from the petiole. Oh, don't mind that like dead leaf in the front, but here we have a whole bunch of Philodendron Micans cuttings. So on this plant, as you will see, the growth points are freestanding caterpillars, they are not emerging from the petiole. You can see it on this cutting especially. Here is the top cutting. So this is the stem, and you can see that the stem on this philodendron micans is much longer and also quite a bit darker than the stem of the Melanochrysum. The petiole comes out of the stem, and then there's much more internodal space between the previous leaf and the growth point. And here's the growth point here. It is a freestanding caterpillar. The philodendron Melanochrysum, even though the leaves are comparable in size, it has its new growth coming out of the petiolar sheath. So that is one big indication that the plant that you are looking at is indeed a Melanochrysum and not a Micans. Man, I have a feeling this is going to be a lot of like leaning and coming back and leaning and coming back. Oh man, my poor back. Your girl is a 32-year-old lady, and as a result, her back hurts all the time. Oh, I scooched forward. That was a good decision on my part. Okay, so we've established the growth pattern between the two plants is very, very different, and the petioles of the plant and stem are like completely different colors. Another huge indication of whether your plant is a Melanochrysum or a Micans is going to be the color of the back of the leaf. So really quick, I don't think that I can show them to you at the same time because I only have two hands, so I'm going to put the Melanochrysum down. But the back side of the philodendron Micans leaf is this very dark maroon color. It's looking kind of maroon purpley on camera. In person, it's very maroon, very purple, very dark, like maybe a glass of wine, and it's very, very beautiful, honestly. I didn't even know that Micans had this beautiful color on the underside of their leaf until I got this plant a few weeks ago, but it is this beautiful maroon color. And I don't know if you'll be able to see it on here, but also the rim around the front of the leaf also reads this maroon color as well. I don't think it's going to pick it up on the camera, but in person it's really obvious to see that the front of the leaf is bordered by that same maroon color. The Melano, we have the undersides of the leaves, and they are very green. They are very green. Sometimes the newer leaves will be blushed with like a bit of orange or like a bit of kind of like a pinkish hue, but as you can see, they're very, very green. Oh yeah, I can totally show you. Okay, so we've got the Micans, and it is dark maroon. And then we've got the Melano, and it is green, like very much so. So that's another indication. If your plant, let's say you paid for a one-leaf cutting, a one-leaf Melanochrysum cutting, and I don't know, you paid like $30 for it for one tiny leaf like this. $30 for a one-leaf Melanochrysum cutting is like decent. But if you get your one-leaf Melanochrysum cutting and it's got a maroon back, it's probably a Micans, in which case $30 for one Micans leaf is like a huge ripoff. That would suck. So that's another thing to definitely be on the lookout for. Also, the border around the Melanochrysum, I think you can see it best on this leaf, is decisively green. There's no chance that it's maroon. There's no chance that it's red or pink like a gloriosum. It's decisively green. The back is decisively green. The stems, the petioles, decisively green. So that is a big indication that it's a juvenile Melanochrysum. Melanochrysum, in my experience, they get darker as they get a little bit older. Okay, so another thing to look at is the color of the new growth. So this leaf right here is the newest leaf that I have on a Melano, and so it's not quite as pronounced as it would be if it was like fresh, just opened in the past couple of days. But as you can see, it has like a bronze orangish hue to it. If we look at the Micans cuttings that I have over here, this leaf is brand new. Oh, it's so tiny, so small, so baby. This tiny small bebe leaf is brand new. It just opened a few days ago, and it is definitely not orange or bronze or brown. It is decisively green. So, and let's see, the back of it is, yeah, the back of it even already has a little bit of that maroon tone to it. So if you get a plant and it is a heart-shaped velvet philodendron that's very small and you're not 100% sure whether you got the Melanochrysum you paid for or you got duped and you have a tiny Micans, the new growth on the Melanochrysum is going to be orange or bronze. The new growth on the Micans looks very green. Okay, so for the most part, I think that's basically it. There's really not a ton of depth to this exercise, but I think with those kind of like main categories, it becomes a lot easier to identify one or the other. Just to recap, you want to look at the growth pattern. The philodendron Melanochrysum in its juvenile form grows together in a very compact, I just dumped soil on my bed, lovely. But the philodendron Melanochrysum in its juvenile form grows in a very compact pattern, whereas a philodendron Micans with leaves of a similar size, it's a very, very vining plant. Also, another thing I forgot to mention earlier is that the Micans will have much, much longer aerial roots than the Melanochrysum. I don't think that this one even has any aerial roots at this size, and this is kept in a grow tent, so it's very humid in there. It would have aerial roots if it wanted to. I genuinely think that this is just a trait of the juvenile Melanochrysum. Then you want to double check the back side of the leaves. Are they dark maroon or purple, or are they green? And then last but not least is the color of the new growth. Is it orangish, orangey bronze, or is it green? And that wraps it up. I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you learned something, and if not, I hope that you at least had a laugh. Thank you so much for chilling with me, and I'll see you on this channel again real soon. Bye!